Hello everybody and welcome to week 3 of the EMI for Academics MOOC. I am still Rob.
And I think I'm still Mary.
Yes, and thank you for participating in this week. Again, more interesting discussions taking place. We are still learning. I hope you're still learning too. And Mary, what would you like to say in terms of your observations?
I'd like to link back to some of the things we were saying in last week's video feedback. There were some interesting discussions this week around pacing and timing. And of course, there's no right answer to this. There's no set rule. All we can say is we have to adapt to the needs of our students and the conditions that you're working in. Crystal asked, how do you cover all the content? And the question is there, cover, as Rob was just pointing out to me before we actually went live. Covering is not the same as actually speaking the content. So we remember what we said last week about thinking about the before the lecture, the during the lecture or the session, and then the after the session. So using all of that space and time and all of the resources that we have, how do we cover the content of what we're delivering? So it's the question of managing the whole experience rather than just thinking of the lecture itself as that one self-contained unit. But the lecture is only part of what we're covering with the students. Something else that came up that's related to it, which is to do with the management of student activities, thinking of, for example, delivering to very large classes. A few things I'd like to just raise with you, a few things to think about. Sometimes we think that the best students should perhaps be working with the not quite so good students, but is that always the case? You have to know your students really well to know whether the stronger work best with the weaker, how does that make the weaker feel? Or maybe the stronger ones need to work with the stronger ones on a slightly different task and the weaker ones work to, you know, there are so many different permutations there that there is no set rule. It's, you know, as we keep saying, you are the experts. You know your students, you know your material, you know your environment. So you have to make those decisions yourself according to what you feel is best and according to the needs of your group. Someone, and I can't remember, I'm usually good at writing down the names, but somebody said, all you can do is be aware. And I suppose that's it really. All we can do is be aware and be alert as to what's going on and then act if we need to change things in the moment or over time. Okay then, I think that was my link to last week. So I think Rob would like to move us on a little bit.
Yes, and I must say, by the way, we are on this video.
Yeah.
I want to scratch my nose because I have an itchy nose. But we've had so many comments analysing people's body language and things like this.
Oh my goodness,
can I just,
yes.
Okay, I scratched my nose.
Okay, he scratched his nose, right.
But we'll go on to talk about, people talked about like touching the face, and I had a really paranoid week. When I was lecturing this week and thinking of all the comments people were making about the bad example of a lecture. And yes, it can really ruin your lecturing style because I was just incredibly...
my nose, oh dear. Sorry.
So some things that were very interesting this week for me. We looked at the slides and the observations of the lectures, and I'd just like to say there are some principles. I came up with a phrase, so when we're talking about English as a medium of instruction in international contexts, the processing is something we have to consider, but the processes are mostly the same. So the principles, so most people go through the EMI MOOC and they have contact with us that's ongoing. And a lot of people say they develop their teaching whatever language it is. It's not about teaching through English, which is completely different from everything else. So we're focusing on clarity, we're focusing on like timing, how you make goals clear, how you demonstrate and manage, say, speed and delivery, how you can be dynamic, enthusiastic. These are not things that are unique to the international education. It's not unique to English. This is something that we all have to consider. And sometimes you look at it, I have to teach a mixed language group through English, and you realise, oh, actually my PowerPoints are very hard to read, for example. And I do now, you know, I look back at what I used 10 years ago when I first lectured, and some of them have a lot of language on there.
Yes.
And it, you know, the students were, you know, some American, some British, but still they'll find it difficult to follow. And my key message is not very clear.
No.
So we can always improve. So I think the key thing is that not everything is new, but we're just really thinking about the processing and how we make things as clear as possible to people who might have very different understandings of what we're doing. So for example, what is the right time to enter a room? You know, people said, oh, he's late and disorganized. Sometimes going into a room when the class starts gives you control as the teacher.
Yes, yeah.
If you arrive early, the students are talking, and then you have to break that and take control.
Yeah.
So there are always advantages and disadvantages to
yes.
everything. But what we have to make clear is we have a mixed audience who don't understand everything they're reading and seeing. What's the best way for you, as you said?
It's awareness again, isn't it?
It's awareness,
It's just awareness, really tuning in
Yeah.
to what's going on around you and the people that you're working with.
Yeah.
I would say. Yeah. And then just taking that point a bit further, Rob, sorry to interrupt you.
That's okay. It's
Okay.
a cooperative interruption. So it's fine.
You know, we've established, I think, these principles of good practice, which apply really whatever the situation. In our situation, it happens to be teaching through English. And then we had that example from Rachel, thank you, Rachel, of Professor Robert Sapolsky, who is a very charismatic teacher, and he is scribbling things on the board in a messy way. He's possibly talking too quickly, and you can hear the laughter of the students in the background. They are with him. And so I think you get to a point where some people are stars. They're like the rock stars of the academic world, and they can break the rules. But most of us are not rock stars, and we have to kind of abide by the rules. But we'd love to be as passionate and motivated and inspiring as this particular professor, who was very engaging and a joy to watch. But, you know, he was, you could say, very messy board. He spoke too quickly, and so on and so forth. But, you know, there you go.
Yeah. And linking to that, just say about body language and behaviour, I just wanted to mention some people. So we had a view from Claudia, who mentioned the line. So it's good to be friendly, it's good to be engaging with students, but you want to be of the group, but not one of the group. So you know, you have to signal that your role is slightly different, and that was important in Claudia's context. Maria in Mexico mentioned, you know, body contact, which is always an interesting area. You know, do you pat someone on the back and say, well done?
Yes.
And do you do that in some contexts? You know, it might be fine, male on male, female on male, female on female. You know, different sort of genders have different implications of how you behave to people. So that's a very interesting area to open. Lots of agreement about eye contact. So across people from different areas, eye contact seems to signal cooperation, engagement, and an interpersonal relationship. Oliver mentioned the importance of considering body language with everything you're doing. You have visuals, you might have a task, you have a particular setup of the room. There's a lot happening which will influence how you use body language. Peter mentioned another consideration where, you know, for the Dutch, he couldn't think of any particular body language that they're famous for, and they don't generally use a lot of gesturing, which might have implications for going and teaching Dutch students, that they will perceive something that's perceived as engaging and dynamic might be perceived as strange and overexcited, maybe. And again, Jamie mentioned in China something I've experienced as well, like different counting systems. I remember this, which in Britain means go away, and in China means come here.
Yes.
And I thought everyone was telling me to go away. I thought that wasn't very nice. So some very interesting discussions. And I liked Eleanor's quote of the week, which was, "Students notice more than we do." And I think that's quite true.
Yes.
So I guess the implication there is you will never be 100% right, and check with your students and see what they're perceiving, from their faces.
Yes.
Do they look engaged? Do they look bored? Do they look a bit frightened of you? And
don't misinterpret that first impression that you may have of a person's face, because it might not mean what you think it means.
And yes, so I was just going to end with some announcements. Announcements. First is we're having a live session, so the video will be available, but we'd like people, if you're available, to join the live community, and then you can interact with us in the Hangout. So details of that are on the week 4 step for the live video. So if you could come, that would be wonderful. If you can't come, please do post a comment or a question that you'd like us to discuss.
Yes.
Because otherwise we'll just talk about things which might or might not be interesting to you. So we'd be very grateful if you joined us or joined us in spirit.
Yes, and the time is 11 a.m, 11 o'clock in the morning, and that is UK time, British time. So you may have to check what time that is in your country, and I hope it's not the middle of the night. But even if you can't join us live, then please, post a question beforehand, actually on the MOOC. Or if you are enrolled as a member of our Facebook group, you could put a question on the Facebook group. And we are going to ask previous followers of this course, previous participants of the MOOC, because we have run it a couple of times already, who are members of the Facebook group, if they would like to make any comments or ask any questions, 6 months or so after having done the MOOC with us. So it's an opportunity for people from different MOOCs to come together and exchange a few ideas. So we will have the MOOC questions live and the Facebook open live, so we can see anything that's happening, any questions that come through.
It's very live.
It's very live, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And and also we should say hello to people who are going to reach week 3 very late. Lots of people have joined in week 1 and are now going into week 2. So hello when you get here.
Yes, when you get here.
Okay.
And it's fine because we've got another sort of like proper final week to go through. But then the course is open for a further 2 weeks, and we will still find the time to respond to your comments. But there won't be this, weekly roundup as we've been doing for the past few weeks. So, you have got the time to finish and to participate and also to upgrade as well. And there was a comment that somebody had tried to upgrade the course and couldn't do so. I'm going to look into that. It may be because the course hasn't officially finished that you can't yet upgrade. I don't know.
I definitely don't know.
Technical stuff, and
indeed.
Yeah, we don't really understand.
We just talk to cameras.
But we will try and find out for you.
Okay. Yes.
So
we can say
bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you very much, and see you next week.
Live.
Okay. Live. Bye-bye.